A beautiful day in northeast Missouri. It is definitely feeling like spring. So I am outside to shoot this vlog. I hope you hear birds in the background and hopefully no ambulances or horns or whatnot. But we're going to press through and we're going to do this outside because it's a glorious day. Today, my topic that I want to speak about is the power of prayer. And I want you to realize that every person is somewhere on the spectrum of prayer in their lives. Some of you have never prayed a prayer to the Lord ever. Some of you pray basically at Easter and maybe Christmas over a meal. Some of you pray when you're in a crisis, when you are desperate. And some of you pray every day. But maybe they're just prayers that are habit, and maybe not. Some of you are really prayer warriors, and that's people that just continue to pray every day. They pray throughout the day. They pray for others. They intercede to the Lord on the behalf of themselves and for others. And this is just a whole spectrum of prayer. So every human being is on there somewhere, and I want you to know I've been in every one of those levels of prayer. And the Lord started me on my real journey in prayer about 10 years ago with some sermons that I listened to from my pastor, and they really sparked something in me that I just hadn't heard before. And so that birthed my journey of prayer. And today I want to tell you a specific incident in my life and the power of prayer, what the Lord did for me because of others' prayers for me. I have had back problems since 1989, so we're talking 28 years now. And over the years, I've just had one after another here and there, and many of you I know do the same thing, and it's no fun. But I really had probably my worst episode ever about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. And it really just began as a normal chronic episode with my back, and after about a week of doing what I usually do, which is using ice, resting, maybe using some heat. Those are the things that I have at my disposal because I have so many allergies. So there aren't any pain medicines I can take, there aren't any anti-inflammatories, and there aren't any muscle relaxers, which are the standard course of treatment. For me, it's what I mentioned along with Tylenol. And so I did all those things, and on a Sunday, about 3 weeks ago now, I thought, man, I am just about over this. I felt like I was about 95% recovered. And that was really important to me because the very next day I was supposed to be flying out of state to see my father. And this was a very important trip for me. So I had been very motivated to try to get well so I could sit in an airplane and fly. Well, unfortunately, I went to church that morning and came home, reached into my dishwasher, and kaboom! I had a ripping, zigzagging pain shoot through my lower right back. I had never experienced anything like it in my life. I mean, I could just see that zigzag happen in my muscles, and I just screamed out. I couldn't even control my response. And my husband hollered from the other room. He said, "You're back?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "But I refuse this in Jesus' name because I've got to get on that plane tomorrow." And so there was the first prayer prayed with this particular episode. Well, I did my normal throughout the afternoon. I thought, okay, lay down, get on the ice, rest, get this under control. Well, I didn't. Unfortunately, I didn't. But it got worse. And it really continued just to escalate. And by that evening, I knew I was in pretty serious trouble. I could not move on my own. I could not get up and down. I couldn't walk on my own. And as my husband helped me go to the restroom and back, it was an excruciating, short little journey. And I'm going to tell you now really specific details about what I suffered. Not to be sensational, not to be dramatic, but so that you can really get the full impact of what the Lord did for me, so that you can fully understand. So I want to tell you that this pain was so bad that at times I was screaming out, at times I was crying. And when I cried, I'm telling you, the pain was so amplified, so magnified, and I didn't understand it. All I knew was, don't cry. And yet it would just come out of me because it hurt so badly I couldn't control myself. And then I would squelch it down again and tell myself, don't cry. And I just had this horrible battle going on within me, besides the physical thing that I was going through. And as I started going through it at this level, I started to shake. My body was almost convulsing. It almost seemed like a seizure, which in all my episodes in all the years, I had never done this. I wondered if I was going into shock. I mean, I just didn't understand. So I'm in this excruciating pain. My husband helps me get back to the couch where I can lay flat, and he asks me, do we need to call the hospital? And at that point, it was like, no, I don't want to do that, because I could not imagine being moved. Having an ambulance come and people get me off that couch and make me ride to a hospital frightened me so badly. I was like, no. And I said, call my nurse practitioner and see if she will call me in a prescription for Demerol. Now, the reason why I thought I could get Demerol was because I'd been given it one time years ago during a surgery. My doctor gave it to me as a test to see if I would react or not, and I didn't. But never since had I tried this drug, and so I just thought I could get it in a pill and take it. So he calls her and he finds out that's not the case. It's by injection only. I had to go to the hospital. And she told him, don't try to put her in a car. And she also told him she's not in shock. It's the pain doing that to her, making her shake so badly. So she knew, don't try to even put her in a car. You've got to call an ambulance. So he came back and told me that. And it was like, that's still not what I want to do. But he was patient with me. And he stood behind me and he stroked my hair and prayed over me. And he whispered prayers over me. And so what's that? I think that's the second time of prayer. Well, I have to tell you that I don't have a great clear memory of everything from this event. You know, some of it's foggy, but I know somewhere in this process I was laying there by myself, and I think he was on the phone with my nurse practitioner, and I just started whispering, Jesus. And when I said it the very first time, there was a little tiny measure of peace that came over me. And I just said it again, Jesus, Jesus. And I just whispered his name. That's prayer. But the shaking was so bad, I finally had to put my hand over my mouth because my jaw was so shaking so badly that my teeth were clacking together as if I was standing outside in the freezing cold. And I covered my mouth just to hold it still. And so finally I said to my husband, okay, call the ambulance. I had to get some kind of relief. And so he did. And when he hung up, then I told him, call my mother, because we live in the same home, but she was in the lower level and we're on the main level. And for some reason, somehow, she had not heard me because I had been so concerned with my crying, my screaming, that she would hear me. And I didn't want that. I didn't want her to know how bad I was. But at this point, I knew she'd hear an ambulance, so there was no choice. And so she came up immediately. And the first thing she did was she knelt beside me. And she put her hands on me, and she started to pray over me. So that was the third episode of prayer. But I remember I locked eyes with her, with my hands still over my mouth, and I said, don't cry. I can't cry. It makes it so much worse. So she couldn't cry either, because I knew it had to be so horrible for both my husband and my mother to see me like that. So she didn't, she didn't cry. And she got up and she went around and she started getting things like a jacket for me and just taking care of the things that needed to be done. And then she came back again. And she put her hands on me again and she prayed over me again. So that's, I think, the fourth episode of prayer. And then before the ambulance took me away, she said that she would call our church secretary so that she would let everybody in our church body know to pray for me, and then also call our family. So there was the fifth episode of prayer. And so by the time the ambulance came and took me and I got to the hospital and I'm laying on that bed flat on my back, still shaking. It had been about an hour and a half of this depth of excruciating pain and this suffering and this shaking and trembling, and all of a sudden I started to have a peace come over me. And it started at the top of my head and it went all the way down to my feet. And I laid there. I just was receiving that. My husband was sitting in the chair and I said to him, I am feeling the power of prayer. I am feeling people's prayers. And I couldn't believe it. And I laid there and I said to him, I am so blessed. I am so grateful to have that calmness come over me. The trembling diminished until it actually stopped. The pain diminished a little. And then finally they came in and they gave me the shot of Demerol. They gave me a lidocaine patch, assuring me I wouldn't react to it. And I can't tell you that I felt a great difference from that. I can tell you that in my head I did. I felt very dizzy. And I felt like my eyeballs were kind of rolling around in my head in opposite directions. But as far as my back and the pain, I didn't feel a big difference. What made the difference was prayer. And so that is my testimony. And that is what I want you to know and to believe, that there is power in prayer. And I hope if just one of you will begin to believe that, and to live that, and to rely on that in your life, then it's worth what I went through. Prayer is so precious. God hears our prayers, and He cares about us, and He answers them. And I'm going to also tell you, this is not the first time that I've experienced this. About 7 years ago or so, I had a really bad episode with my back. And unbeknownst to me, one man prayed for me. And I had a beautiful, warming heat just enveloped my lower back after I left his presence. And it lasted for about 10 solid minutes. And I thought, what is this? I was in a vehicle and it felt like I had a heating pad on me. So it doesn't matter if it's one praying for us or others, or if it's a multitude. God hears our prayers. So I hope my story impacts you. If there's just one of you that this sets on that journey of prayer, just like my pastor's sermon set me on the journey of prayer, then what I went through is worth it. That's how much I believe and I value prayer. It is so precious to me. My name is Candy Rice, and I am the founder of Living Hope. This is a ministry where I teach the physical, mental, and spiritual healing truths that the Lord has taught me throughout all my years with Him, but especially coming out of clinical depression 2 years ago. I've written a book called He Enriched My Life by the Death I Suffered, Learning to Trust God Through Depression. And you can order that through my website at candyrice.org. You can also contact me there if you would like me to come speak and share Living Hope at your church, a conference, a retreat, a meeting, any setting. I am welcome, or I am more than happy to come, and I hope that you would welcome me to come. So again, my name is Candy Rice. I hope that you are in the beginning, the middle, or even at the mature stage of the power of prayer, and that my testimony has been a blessing to you.